Welcome, my dear grade 12 Bosconians, to the first pre-recorded lesson video on English for academic and professional purposes. Before we proceed to the main discussion, I would just like to remind everyone about some reminders when you are watching this pre-recorded video of lesson number 1. Firstly, pay your full attention on the video. Never let yourself be distracted by anything or anyone. Secondly, I highly suggest that you get a pen and notebook to jot down the important concepts to be explained and discussed on this video. Thirdly, hopefully before you proceeded to watch this video, you had accomplished first the pre-test on Solar NGS. If you have not yet, go answer it and just get back to this video. So I hope everything is cleared. So that's it. So please listen attentively. So lesson 1 has something to do with nature and structure of academic text. So in this lesson, we will deal and we will find out what is the nature and what are the structures of academic text. Okay? So the first question that we have to ask ourselves before we proceed to the succeeding slides of this PowerPoint is, what is academic text? Okay, so for sure, you already have an answer for this question. What is academic text? Why? Because ever since that you have gone to school and ever since that you have started schooling, you have been dealing with different types of academic texts. Okay? So let's find out what is academic text. So when we say academic text, it is a reading material that provides information which include concepts and theories that are related to the specific discipline. In other words, academic texts are any reading material that provides information. Okay? So academic texts are not conceptualized, academic texts are not conceived, and academic texts are not formed to entertain people. Why? Because that is not its objective. So, in other words, the main objective of academic text is to provide information to everyone. Okay, so what are some of the examples of academic texts that we can read on, that we can encounter? So, examples such as, of course, the textbooks that we are using whenever we are doing our researches, whenever that we are doing our homeworks or sit works. Aside from that, academic texts can also be in the form of essays. Academic text can also be in the form of thesis and anything or any text that provide information. Okay? So always remember that since academic texts provide information, they include concepts and theories that are related to the specific discipline. And by discipline, we mean subjects. Okay? So next, always remember that aside from providing information, academic texts are also objective in nature. So what do we mean by objective? This means that they are based on facts with solid basis. Okay? So always remember that aside from providing information, academic texts are generally objective. Okay? So by objective, we mean that they are based on facts with solid basis. And please take note, they are not just based on facts, but facts with solid basis. So technically, academic texts are empirical. Okay, and when we say empirical, these are facts with solid basis or based from solid or concrete experiences. Okay, so that is what do we mean by academic text. Next, okay, so the following are considered as academic text. So aside from the examples that I have given earlier, so these are some of the many examples of academic text that you can read on and encounter. So we have research paper, we have conference paper, we have feasibility studies, we have thesis or dissertation, we have reviews, essay, academic journals, reports. Okay? So these are some of the many examples of academic texts that we can read on and that we can make use of. Okay? Especially when we are doing our researches. Okay? So what are the characteristics and nature of an academic text? So at this juncture, we will be dealing with some of the characteristics and nature of an academic text. So what is the first characteristic or nature? Academic text follows a rigid structure. So what do we mean by structure? So as the text on the PowerPoint says, unlike fiction or journalistic writing, the overall structure of an academic text is formal and logical. It must be cohesive and possess a logically organized flow of ideas. This means that various parts are connected to form a unified whole. So in other words, no, just like what I said earlier, the structure of academic text follows a rigid structure. So what do we mean by rigid structure? It is formal and logical in nature. Okay? So by formal, we mean that all the languages that has or all the languages that have been used while writing the academic text and while the academic text has been published to public, it is formal. Okay? So it is you're not going to make use of colloquial words or jargon terms, or no, not technically jargon, no, colloquial or slang. Okay, slang terms. Okay, and logical. Okay, logical structure means that the academic text has a what? Has an introduction, has a body, and it also has a conclusion. That is what do we mean by rigid structure. It follows the pattern of introduction, body, and conclusion structure. Okay? So aside from that, academic text, please take note of the modal verb must be cohesive. So what do we mean by cohesive? Meaning to say that all or the general idea, okay, the general idea of the academic text is connected or related to the other ideas presented on the academic text. Okay, so that is what we mean by cohesive. Aside from that, academic text should possess a logically organized flow of ideas, and this has something to do with cohesion. No? Okay, so again, academic text should possess a logically organized flow of ideas so that you will be able to achieve cohesive. Okay, so that is what do we mean by structure. Next, tone. Okay, so class, let me clarify on this one. The tone here, the word tone here is used differently from how you generally perceive this word. Okay, so tone here is in or um, doesn't mean the sound that you hear normally. Okay, so let us find out what do we mean by tone here. So when we say tone, it is the overall attitude conveyed in a piece of writing. So in other words, when we say tone, this is actually the attitude of the writer or of the author that he wants to convey through the piece of his writing. Okay, so the tone of academic text is generally fair, okay, or objective. So in other words, it is not biased. Okay, it is not biased. It doesn't take side. It remains neutral. It remains at the middle. Okay, so the arguments of other writers or other authors are fairly presented and with an appropriate narrative tone. Always remember that when you are writing an academic text and you are presenting a position or argument that disagrees with one's perspectives, describe the argument correctly without being or without using bias or loaded language. So what do we mean by loaded language? When we say loaded language, these are languages that express bias. Okay? These are words that express or that pertain to the writer's or author's subjective point of view, especially if the writer is dealing, okay, with a with a contradictory perspective of that of another author or writer. Okay? So again, when you are writing your academic text, make sure that your tone as a professional writer, okay, when the tone or your tone as a professional writer should be loaded with unbiased languages. Okay? So you have to be fair. Okay? Even though you disagree with the point, even though you disagree with the point of view or the perspective of the other writer, then you have no choice but to present everything fairly and balanced. Okay? Next, language. Okay? So, when we say language, when we say language, you have to keep in mind that you have to use unambiguous language when you are writing your academic text. And what do we mean by unambiguous language? Unambiguous language are languages that are too highly technical in nature, meaning to say not everyone can understand that words that you incorporated on your academic text. So the result of that, okay, the consequence of that, if you made use of unambiguous language, is that only a limited number of people will be able to appreciate your academic writing or your academic text, and only a limited number of people will be imparted with the information that you are intended or that you are intending to impart, okay, to general public. Okay? So in other words, when you are writing academic texts, okay, when you are conceptualizing your academic text, make sure that you are using a language that is not too common nor too ambiguous, okay, too ambiguous to your readers. Okay? So please take note of the underlined red words, unambiguous language. Okay, you have to make use of unambiguous language. In other words, again, when we say unambiguous language, these are languages that are generally or that can be easily understood by the general readers or by general publics or those people whom you are catering. Okay, so clear topic sentences enable a reader to follow your line of thinking without difficulty. Why? Because you made use of unambiguous language. You made use of languages or words that are at the level of understanding of your readers. Okay, so what are the things that you have to do away, or what are the things that you have to take note when you are writing or when you are using this required and prescribed language on your academic text? It has to be formal language and it should be in the third person point of view. Okay, so in other words, you are using formal language. You are going to do away using slangs or colloquials, okay? Because you are dealing with professionals here, and you are also going to make use of third person point of view. So in other words, you are going to make use of third person pronouns. Okay? So technical language appropriate to the area of study may also be used. However, it does not mean using big words just for the sake of doing so. Okay? So in other words, so when we say technical language, these are jargons. So jargons are languages that are specific to a particular professional. Okay? To a particular professions. So you may only or you can only use jargons given that you are dealing with a specific field of professionals. Okay, so that's the only time that you can make use of technical language. But however, if you are dealing with general readers or mass readers, then as much as possible, you have to make use of language or languages that are of their level of understanding. Okay? Next. Next is, of course, citation. So we all know, okay, we all know what citation is. So when we say citation, of course, it is the act of citing sources in your academic text. Okay? So why do we need to cite our sources in our academic text? For us to be what? For us to be not, what do you call this? Okay, so for us to be not accused of plagiarism, and we all know that plagiarism is an intellectual theft, and it is actually punishable by law. Okay, so as much as possible, when you are doing your academic writing and your academic text, make sure that you are citing your sources, each and every sources that you use on your academic text. Okay, so this is to acknowledge, okay? This is to acknowledge your sources. Okay? So next. Next is complexity. So we all know that majority or the general, not actually general, but the main nature of academic text is complexity. And what do we mean by complexity? Okay? So when you are writing your academic text, you are making use and you are required to use your higher order thinking skills. Okay? So this is the one skill that is not common and that is not being utilized by everyone. Okay? So only those people, only those professionals who have been trained, no, have been trained to use and honed their higher order thinking skills are the ones capable of using this kind of thinking skill. Okay? And as I was saying earlier, when you are dealing with academic texts, you are addressing complex issues. And when you are addressing complex issues, you are making your readers make use their higher order thinking skills to comprehend these complex issues. All right? So you are making your readers think outside of the box. Okay? So as a reader or as an academic writer, that is one of the basic skills that you have to have when you are writing your academic text. Okay? Aside from imparting information or providing information, you also have to teach and train your readers to make to use their higher order thinking skills. Okay? So complexity. Next, evidence-based arguments. We said earlier during the first part of this discussion that academic texts are based from solid or from facts with solid basis. And this is what do we mean by that? Okay? So evidence-based arguments. So what do we mean by evidence-based arguments? So these are opinions that are based on a sound understanding. Okay? So again, when we say evidence-based arguments, these are not just merely opinions, but these are opinions that are based on a sound understanding. Meaning to say, these opinions are grounded and are anchored with solid basis. Okay, they can be proven, they can be tested. Okay, they can be proven as to their truthfulness or falseness. Okay? So as an academic writer, you have to make sure that all your points, all your ideas, all your arguments are evidence-based. And there is one particular word that I want you all to remember when you are dealing with this. And what is that word? Empirical or empiricism. Okay, so as much as possible, your academic text is empirical. Okay, so next. Next is academic texts are thesis driven. So what is this one? So the starting point of an academic text is a particular perspective, idea, or position applied to the chosen research problem, such as establishing, proving, or disproving solutions to the questions posed for the topic. So in other words, no, your academic text should possess a thesis statement. Why? Because a thesis statement is the very main idea of what the whole academic text is about. Okay, so in other words, no? In other words, your thesis statement is the general or it is the main idea of your academic text. So it bears the biggest responsibility on your academic text. Why? Because once the readers read your thesis statement on your academic text, they will immediately have an idea that your text has something to do with this particular topic. Okay? And they will be challenged. Okay? They will be challenged to prove, okay, if your thesis statement is conclusive, or in other words, if it is true or not. Okay? So based from the other supporting ideas or supporting arguments that you presented on your academic text. Okay? So make sure that your academic text should establish what? Proving or disapproving proving or disapproving on the part of your readers. Okay? Next. So this table, okay, as you can all see, summarizes the characteristics of an academic text. So, as you can see, no, from the table, we can already distinguish the characteristics of academic text to non-academic text. So, let's go for the first one. So, one of the characteristics of an academic text is audience. So, we said, or as I said earlier, the academic or in academic texts, its audience are coming mainly from the field of academe or academia. So in other words, the audience of academic texts are or the audiences of academic texts are from or are professionals. Okay, regardless of specific professional field. Okay, whereas on the non-academic text, its audience is the mass public. Okay? So, when we say non-academic text, it's one of its nature is to entertain its readers. That is why it is catering to the general public. Excuse me. Okay? So next, another characteristic of an academic text is its purpose. So when we say purpose, this is the reason. Okay? The reason that tells the reader why this particular academic text was created. Okay? So what is the purpose of academic text? So just like what I said earlier, academic text provides information and therefore it informs the readers with solid evidences. Remember, evidence-based arguments or empiricism. Okay? Whereas on non-academic text is its purpose is to aside from inform Okay? Its purpose is to entertain or persuade the readers. Okay? So next, let's talk about the style. So when we say style, okay, so in academic text, it is formal and impersonal. Okay, so when we say impersonal, objective. Okay, so the style, or in other words, so when we say style, it is actually how the writer or how the author or writer of the academic text um, wrote his academic text. Okay? So what are the ways, okay? What is the pattern of development that the writer use when he or she is writing his or her academic text, okay? So again, when we in the style of academic text is formal and impersonal or objective. Whereas in non-academic text, it is personal, okay, personal, impressionistic, emotional, or subjective. Okay? So next, the structure of academic text is standard or, in other words, rigid structure. It follows a specific style, it follows a specific pattern, or it follows a specific structure. Okay? Such as the introduction, body, and conclusion. Whereas in non-academic text, it has no rigid structure. Okay? Meaning to say, it is free-flowing. Okay, it is fluid. Okay, the structure of non-academic text is fluid. Okay, so next, when it comes to language, okay, so in academic text, it makes use of formal language that avoids colloquialisms and slangs. Okay, why? Because again, academic texts cater to the people in the academe or the academia or the professionals. So as professional, okay, as a person in a specific professional field, I would not like to have or I would not like to read any language on an academic text that is colloquial or slang in nature. Okay? So, whereas in non-academic texts, the language that it uses are informal, casual, and may contain some slangs. Okay? So, pardon for cutting the word slang. Okay? So, it may contain slangs. Okay? So, last is, of course, the last characteristic of this text is subject or content. So, the subject or the main subject of academic text is shared historical events or literature or other forms of knowledge. Okay? Or other forms of knowledge. So, this knowledge gives information or provides information to the readers. Okay? Whereas in non-academic text, its subject or content is mainly focusing on the personal life of the writer or the everyday events that are either happening on the life of the writer or on his or her surroundings. Okay? So these are the characteristics of academic text and non-academic text. So please take note of the different characteristics of the respective text. Okay? So next is the language of academic text. Okay? So just moments ago, I discussed what is academic language and why it is used in or why it is prescribed to be used in academic texts and in academic writing. So what do we mean by academic language? Okay, so academic language refers to the oral, written, auditory, and visual language proficiency required to learn effectively in schools and academic programs. So in other words, the very reason why it is called academic language is that it is mainly used in schools and in academic programs or in academic gatherings. Okay? And when we are using academic language, the language in nature is sophisticated. Okay, so what do we mean by sophisticated? By sophisticated, we mean that the academic language is formal in style and nature. We are avoiding using colloquials and slangs. Okay, we can make use of jargons given that we are dealing with a particular field of professionalization. Okay? So, where do we mostly find academic language? So, we mostly use and find academic language in classroom lessons, books, tests, and assignments, and everything in between. Okay? So, academic language, always remember, is the language that students are expected to learn and achieve fluency in. So, by fluency, we do not mean that you have to master all the academic vocabularies. No. When we say fluency here, we mean that you have to make use of the academic vocabulary carefully, efficiently, effectively, and properly. Okay? So that is again, what do we mean by academic language? So again, when we say academic language, this is the language that we use in academic setup or in academic context. Okay? So next. So according to the text, students who master academic language are more likely to be successful in academic and professional settings. So why so? Okay, why so? Because since you have been able to master the academic language, then expect that you will be successful in all your academic undertakings and in your professional setting or in your professional field. Why? Because you will be able to deal with other professionals or with other persons in the academe effectively. You will be able to express your ideas according to how it should be expressed using academic vocabularies. Okay? And if you have achieved that, then you will be appreciated because and you will be perceived as another member of the academe. Okay? So always remember that in the future, once you land on a job, you will be dealing with a lot of professional correspondence. And that also entails using academic vocabulary. Okay? So that is why if you failed to achieve or if you fail to master your academic vocabulary when you were still in the schools or when you are still schooling, then you have to do something about it. Do not let other people ridicule you just because you failed to master and achieve the amount of fluency that you're supposed to achieve on your academic vocabulary. Okay? So academic language. So now let us look at the differences of academic language and social language. So when we say social language, it is the simple informal language we use when talking face to face with family members and friends. So in other words, these are the common or generic language or vocabulary that we often use when we are in an informal context or informal setup. Okay? Words such as cool, awesome, dude, what else? Etc. Okay, etc. These are part or these are examples of social language. So we don't make use of the words cool, awesome, or dude when we are dealing with professionals in a specific academe. Okay? So again, social language in a nutshell is the kind of language that we generally use in our everyday or in our day-to-day life. Okay? So We make use of contemporary or slang, okay, under social language. Okay, so social language also includes writing emails, friend letters, and text or retelling stories. Okay, so social language can also communicate feelings, needs, and wants using symbolic hand gesture for drink, eat, hot, cold, hurt, or tired. Okay, so that is what do we mean by social language. And again, when we say academic language, it is the vocabulary students or adults use to succeed in the classroom or in the workplace. So just like what I said earlier, no, if you failed to master fluency, or if you fail to master the required fluency of your academic vocabulary, then you will not be likely succeed in your profession or in your profession in the future. Okay? So we use academic language to describe and comprehend complex ideas, process higher order thinking skills, and understand abstract concepts. So that is why we have to really master our fluency on academic vocabulary or academic language. Okay? So always remember that students with limited or low academic language skills are more than likely to have low academic performance in classroom settings, which is I highly and certainly agree. No, as a teacher for 4 years already, I have seen and I have observed some students of mine, okay, who failed to master their academic fluency or academic vocabulary fluency, and that they tend to achieve low academic performance in their classes. Okay, so you don't want to see, or you don't want to have your future look like that. Okay, so next. So this table um, distinguishes the differences of academic language from social language. So from academic language, so the variety of words, okay, more sophisticated vocabulary. So just like what I said earlier, if you were intently listening to my discussion, in academic language, we make use of sophisticated vocabulary. Whereas in social language, there is a instance of repetition of words. Okay, so in academic language, sentences start with transition words. Generally, let me add an adverb to that. Okay, sentences generally start with transition words such as however, moreover, and in addition. Whereas in social language, generally, now the transition that people who are engaged in um, social communication make use of the and but only. Okay, generally, no, and but are the transition words that most people in social communication make use. And please be reminded that in academic language, slangs are strictly prohibited. The same is true, or the same can be said true to colloquials. Okay? Whereas in social language, it is entirely okay. Okay? So use of slang such as guy, cool, and awesome are entirely okay. Okay? So what is the characteristic, or what are the characteristics of an academic language? So please take note of the characteristics of a academic language. We have the formal, impersonal, precise, and objective. So we say formal, it should not be conversational and casual. Okay, so the academic language under this kind of characteristic should not bear conversationalism and casual, okay, or casualism. Okay, avoid colloquial and idiomatic expressions. Okay, why? Because not all people are familiar with the meanings of idiomatic expressions. As much as possible, be straight to the point with your vocabularies. Okay, and please, another thing that I would like you all to keep in mind is avoid contractions. And when we say contractions, this is the process of cutting or shortening words, especially the adverbs, especially verbs. Okay, words such as isn't, aren't, weren't. Okay, all those words are examples of contractions. Okay, so next is impersonal. So when we say again, when we say impersonal, it is unbiased. Okay, so do not refer to yourself as the performer of actions, even though you are. Okay, even though you are in reality. So in other words, no, you have to be humble. Okay, you have to keep your feet on the ground. Okay, you should not be taking all the credits. Okay, so do not use personal pronouns. So again, do not use personal pronouns. Instead, make use of the third person point pronoun or third person point of view pronouns. Okay? So next is of course precise. And when we say precise, it has also something to do with being formal. So when we say precise, it should be straight to the point. It should be direct to the point. Okay? So there is no swerves and curves. Okay? So the facts should be presented accurately. Okay? As much as possible accurately, 100%. Okay, so the choice of words should be appropriate. Okay, so always remember that when you are presenting facts, make sure that the vocabularies that are related to that fact are being used correctly and precisely and accurately. Okay, so the use of technical terms to achieve precision is applied. Okay, so again, um, in most cases, you can make use of their technical terms or jargon terms, especially if you are dealing with a specific field of professionals. Okay, but if you are dealing with the general professionals, then you can do away from using technical terms. Okay, not unless if you are defining technical terms. Okay, so next is of course objective. So when we say objective, it is unbiased, based on facts, and it's not influenced by personal feelings. Okay. So next, so always remember that part of the process of writing academic text is summarizing. And summarizing has its various techniques. So in the succeeding slides, we will find out or we will be discovering what is summarizing and what are its various techniques that we can employ, okay, that we can employ in writing our academic text. So what is summary? So when we say summary, no, it is actually a shortened passage which retains the essential information of the original text. So in other words, no, when you are writing your summary, and I am 100% certain that this is the very first time that you encounter this term and that you have done summarizing. No? So when we say summarizing, we are just shortening the passage, retaining the essential information of that original text. Okay, so we are fairly restating in our own words the contents of the passage. So the essence, always remember that the essence of our summary, okay, is based from how we understand the original text that we just read. Okay? So again, no, the justice of our summary depends on the level of our understanding on the meaning that the original text presented or has presented to us. Okay? So please take note that you are simply reporting back what the writer has said, and please do away from making value judgments. So when you ask to summarize, you are not asked to also include your personal opinions or your personal judgments on the original text that you are writing your summary on. Okay? So you are just simply restating or reporting back what the writer has said on the original text. Okay? So take a look at this example. So This is the original text. The amphibia, which is the animal class to which our frogs and toads belong, were the first animals to crawl from the sea and inhabit the earth. Okay, so what is the summarized version? As you can see, it is now what? It is now shorter compared to the original one. Okay, so the first animals to leave the sea and live on dry land were the amphibia. Okay, so there were words. Okay, there are some words that have been restructured, and there are some words that have been used to replace the original words on the original text. Okay, but still, this text, this academic text, no, still express the same meaning or the original meaning. Okay, so next, so what are the characteristics of a good summary? So when we are doing our summary, it is not just what? It is not just simply keep in mind that we are doing summary or that we are writing a summary just to shorten the longer original text. Okay? So we also have to keep in mind the characteristics of a good summary. So what's the first one? Okay, so one of the characteristics of a good summary is that it can be understood without reference to the original. So your summary is of a good one if the reader understood your summarized version of the original text without reverting, okay, without reverting or without reading the original one. Why? Because from your summary, no, from your summary, the writer has already the writer has already absorbed, that has already achieved, or that has already been provided the meaning or the understanding that was intended for that reader to um to get. Okay, so again, one of the characteristics of a good summary is it can be understood without reference to the original. Next, a good summary is a faithful reproduction of or contains only the ideas or information of the original. So just like what I said earlier, just like what we said, just like what I discussed earlier, when you are doing a summary, you are simply reporting back what the original writer has said on his original text. Okay, you are not adding your own judgment. You are not adding your own opinion. Okay? So always make sure that you have faithfully reproducted, okay, you have faithfully reproducted what the original text or the meaning of the original text. Okay? So okay, so next is, it is a brief without any unnecessary detail. So this third characteristic has something to do with this second one. Okay, and last is, of course, it is a readable unified whole. What do we mean by this? It basically means that your summary represents, okay, entirely represents what the whole or what the whole longer original text is about. Okay? So these are the characteristics of a good summary. So next is paraphrasing. So another technique that can be used when you are summarizing is paraphrasing. So what is paraphrasing? So when we say paraphrasing, this is also restating completely and correctly the passage using your own words. Okay, so this one, no, you are making use of your own words. Okay, so these own words or your own words are coming from your understanding of the original text. Okay, so again, no, again, the very essence, the very substance of your paraphrase version of the original text largely and solely and fully depends on your complete understanding of the original text. Okay? So again, we will say paraphrasing. This is restating completely and correctly the passage using one's own words. Okay, so let us take a look at this example. So in this original sentence, we can read the sentence as the position of women in the society has changed greatly in the past 20 years. So for the paraphrase or for the paraphrase version, okay, so as you can see, there are changes with the wordings. Why? Because on the paraphrase sentence, this is actually how the writer or the person who paraphrased the original sentence understood the meaning from this original sentence. Okay? So as you can see now, so social status on the paraphrase sentence refers to the position. Women on the original sentence pertains to the female or pertain to the female on the paraphrase sentence. No? Greatly in the original sentence refers to dramatically in the paraphrase sentence. In last in paraphrase sentence refers to the past in the original sentence, and the time frame, no, the time frame on the original sentence 20 years is 2 decades in the paraphrase version. Okay, so just as the same with summarizing, you also have to keep in mind that you do not just simply paraphrase. Okay, that you do not just simply paraphrase out of nothing or out of something. Okay, so you have also to keep in mind the 4 R's in paraphrasing. So what is the 4 R? Reword. Okay, so when we say rewording, you are replacing any words on the original sentence to your paraphrase version. So make sure that when you are doing rewording, make sure that the words on the original text or the original, yes, on the original sentence are synonymous to the words that you are going to make use on your paraphrase version. Okay, so again, please take note of the word synonyms. Okay, so next is rearrange. So when we say rearrange, no, you are rearranging the position of some words. Okay, you are rearranging the position of some words from the original text to your paraphrase one without compromising the meaning. Okay, without compromising the meaning. Next, realize. So you have to take note if your rewording and rearranging affect the information that were previously stated on the original text and on your paraphrase version, that they cannot be changed. Okay, that they cannot be changed, they cannot be altered. Okay, so whatever information that is stated on the original text should not and strictly be changed or altered on the paraphrase version. Okay? And last is recheck. Okay, recheck. So when you say rechecking, you have to reflect if your paraphrase version of the original text still have the resemblance of what the original text is about. Okay, so you have to check for the important information. If on your paraphrase version, the important information are still there, okay, and of course the overall meaning. Okay, so next is direct quotation. So when we say direct quotation, okay, it is actually reproducing an author's exact words as they were spoken or written. Okay? Preserving the peculiarities of spelling, grammar, or punctuation. So in other words, so when you are doing direct quotation, you are not changing anything. Okay? You are restating it, you are reproducing it the way it was spoken, the way it was originally written on the text. Okay? So you are preserving the peculiarities of spelling, grammar, or punctuation. Okay, so for example, no, so um, most often, no, direct quotation can be identified by what? By the use or by the presence of quotation marks. So when you see quotation marks on an academic text, then Therefore, it is a product of direct quotation. Okay? So again, direct quotation is mainly identified and present or represented by the presence of direct quotation marks. Okay? And then that's it. Okay? So those are the various techniques of summarizing. And overall, in general, that is the nature and structure of academic texts. Okay? So, thank you, Grade 12 Bosconians, for watching this pre-recorded Lesson 1 video. I hope you picked up something meaningful from the discussion. If you have some clarifications or questions, as you are expected to have, you can raise it during our live synchronous meeting. See you, Bosconians. Live Jesus and Mary with joy.